Good morning and welcome to the Live with Renk show. Appreciate you guys listening. And now on air with us is Congressman Justin Amash, Republican from the 3rd District here in Michigan, kind enough to call in from Washington, D.C., where he is still there, I guess, until next week, dealing with, well, hopefully they will deal with the problems of the day. Again, thanks a lot for calling in, Congressman Amash.
Hey, thanks, Renk. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I appreciate you having the opportunity, or I hope you appreciate the opportunity, I guess I should say, to explain some of these things that have been going on. Obviously, that's been getting a lot of press here in Michigan as well as across the nation concerning the tweet storm that occurred, I don't know, somewhere beginning of May, I think it was, something like that, mid-May. And obviously, big questions I have. I get a lot of emails and phone calls from people that are believe it or not, there's some that support what you say and others that do not support what you say. So I'm glad that we have the opportunity to hash this out. Now, Congressman Amash, you wrote, you started it all off with reading, tweeting after you had read the entire Mueller report. You said, here are my principled conclusions. Attorney General Barr has deliberately misrepresented Mueller's report. President Trump has engaged in impeachable conduct. Partisanship has eroded our system of checks and balances. And number 4, few members of Congress have read the report. So I guess let's take it in that order, since that's the way you started it off. How is it that you believe that Attorney General Barr deliberately misrepresented the Mueller report in that 4-page letter?
Sure. So if you read the letter and you read the report, it's actually quite self-evident. It's actually not difficult to see it. In the March 24 letter, Barr doesn't make it clear at all that the reason the Attorney General is not concluding that there was obstruction of justice, he leaves that open, but that the reason he doesn't conclude it is because of constitutional reasons related to the ability to indict a sitting president, which is consistent with what the DOJ standards are. So the DOJ says we can't indict a sitting president. That's what the Constitution says. That's what I believe myself, personally. And that is the main thrust in Mueller's report for why he can't reach a conclusion. He leaves it open. He says, I can't exonerate the president. I also am not going to say that he's guilty. I'm not going to say that we should indict him. And the reason he does that is because of the Constitution and the DOJ opinion. But Barr completely leaves that out of his letter.
Okay.
So if you read Barr's letter, he doesn't even mention it. So he makes it sound like, and I myself was misled by it because I read Barr's letter and I tweeted about it at the time. And I myself was misled by Barr's letter because he makes it sound like Mueller did his investigation and just couldn't make a decision. He doesn't explain why it is he didn't come to this conclusion. He just makes it sound like Mueller doesn't know what he's doing, and therefore he, Barr, and Rosenstein had to step in and make the tough decision that Mueller was unable to make.
Well, here is from the letter that you speak of. After making a, quote, thorough factual investigation, end quote, into these matters, the special counsel considered whether to evaluate conduct under department standards governing prosecution and declination decisions, but ultimately determined not to make a traditional prosecutorial judgment. Now, if you remember, Attorney General Barr's response to that is, first, it's an opinion. It's not written in stone that he can indict. Second, Bill Clinton was indicted under the same things you're pointing to, Congressman Amash. And third, I asked Mueller if he would like to, in fact, where would I say? He asked Mueller if he would like to review the letter, and Mueller said no.
Yeah,
how would you respond to that?
And I can't speak to why he didn't want to review the letter. I think that's something that maybe if Mueller comes to testify, he can testify on that. But the idea that a president can't be indicted while in office is a long-standing principle. That's not something that was just invented for this particular scenario.
No, and I don't disagree with
something. It goes back to the founding, and you'll find writings of the founders on this particular issue. So
No, I don't disagree with that. It's just that it happened under Clinton, and so it does happen, and that's very recent.
Well, Clinton was impeached. He was impeached for offenses in office, but he wasn't convicted in the Senate. The point is, Barr leaves the most important part of Mueller's report out of his letter. And the most important aspect is that because of the DOJ opinion and because of the Constitution, Mueller could not come to a conclusion. He believed that it was wrong to put a charge on a sitting president. In other words, he can't charge him, technically, like legally. So it would be wrong, in Mueller's opinion, to say that I would charge him if not for the fact that I'm not allowed to. Because Mueller makes clear in the report that he doesn't think that would be good for our country. He doesn't think it would be good to have this outstanding charge on the president that can't actually be acted on. And then you have
which means you could never ever impeach or charge a president or go down impeach. Well, impeachment's more of a political. It's not has nothing to do with
you cannot charge a president. But
Clinton was.
Here's the deal though.
All right.
What a lot of people thought Mueller should do, if he believed there were chargeable offenses, they thought Mueller should say, there are chargeable offenses, but I can't charge them because he's the president.
Okay, let's move on.
Actually, but I want to make sure
go
I'm
ahead.
clear about this. Actually, that's something that I had considered to be the way I would have approached it initially. But then I read the Mueller report and understood what Mueller was doing, which is that he thought, when he analyzed it, that it was a bad idea to do that because he didn't want those charges just sitting out there. And then countries around the world think we have essentially a president who's violated the law, but we just can't do anything about it. He thought it was unfair to the country and unfair to the president.
Okay, so
if anything, he was doing a favor to the president, and doing what he considered a favor to the country by not claiming there were chargeable offenses.
Okay, so you believe you believe President Trump engaged in impeachable conduct, and nowhere did I see any examples you gave of that. So I assume you mean in the 10.
I tweeted out examples.
You did? I didn't see that anywhere. So is it of the 10 instances? Is it from the 10 instances of the obstruction in the Mueller report?
Yeah, and there are
all right,
there are 5 threads on this topic. So I didn't put it all in one thread because it would have been 80 tweets. And
I actually went to your Facebook page this morning and it was down. Just so you know, as a side note.
Yeah.
All right.
We're doing some maintenance on it.
Okay. So real quickly then, give us a couple that you feel were bad enough that should be impeachable.
Sure. And I want to make clear again that I did tweet all of these out because I sometimes read, he didn't lay out any particular instances, but I actually did.
Okay.
So if you go and read the Twitter threads, they're there. So a couple of good examples would be when he told Don McGahn to have, this is the White House counsel, to have the special counsel removed on the basis of pretextual conflicts of interest. And then the president's advisors told the president that that was ridiculous and couldn't justify removing the special counsel. And then later, when word of this got out, the president then instructed Don McGahn, the special counsel, the White House counsel, to create a false record. So to create a false internal record stating that Trump had not asked him to fire the special counsel. So he told him to fire the special counsel, and then he asked the White House counsel to create a false record saying, "No, I never told you that." It's completely dishonest. Completely dishonest.
Do you remember which one that was? Because I see the appointment of special counsel and efforts to remove him, and so you're not saying that the fact that he wanted him removed is an obstruction. It's the second part that you believe is an obstruction.
Well, I think the second one is a stronger case. Both of them could satisfy the elements, but you have to remember what an impeachment is. It is a laying out of charges. It's just an indictment. It doesn't mean guilt. It still has to be tried, and the trial is in the Senate. So you could lay out a bunch of evidence, and then the president can come back, his team can come back and say, here is our defense against all of these charges. And then you have a trial in the Senate, and then it's determined. Now, I think some of these are stronger charges, and some of them are weaker charges. So the one that I think is a particularly strong one is asking someone in the White House to create a false record with the purpose of misleading people.
I don't see the word false anywhere in the 10. If you could point me to the report, and there's 10 instances, or have someone tell you which of the 10, 1 through 10, it is, because I don't see the word false being used.
I don't have the report right in front of me right now, but if you go and look at, I think it's a little bit later in terms of the numbers, if you're talking about 1 through 10. And
all right, well, we're running out of time.
There's a section about the president requesting that a false record be made.
All right, I got to take a quick break. We'll come back on the other side. Man, these things always take longer than these questions, and I want to give him the opportunity to explain as much as possible. We can use you on air for an hour, Congressman Amash. You listen to Live with Renk. We'll be right back. You listen to Live with Renk. Appreciate that very, very much. On air with me is Congressman Justin Amash, Michigan's 3rd District Republican, calling in from Washington, D.C. Wanted to ask him, given an opportunity to discuss to many of you, our constituents, why he believes that the 10 instances that Mueller points to in his report that he said he can't charge them with, he being Mueller, and I guess somewhere in the executive summary, he believes that he can't do that due to policies in the DOJ that many of us know about, but it was done to Clinton. So there's some disagreement there whether or not his boss, Barr, said yes, he could have. He had a chance to review our letter, and he refused to. So I don't know. It's sounding to me like there may be some dereliction of duty here by Mueller in one respect or another. And I asked Congressman Amash right before to give me some examples of why, of those 10 instances that Mueller points out, why he believes that they are obstruction of justice. He gave us one. I just talked to Congressman Amash at break. I cannot find the second part about a false statement. I did find one where he told Lewandowski, I think it was, or maybe McGahn, to correct a New York Times story was out there. Before I run out of time, let me ask you this question, because here's a concern. Go ahead. Did you want to add something?
So I've got the section for you if you want.
All right, go ahead.
So if you look in volume 2, page 115, that's where it's really stated. And then Mueller also provides his analysis a little bit later, a few pages later. But
he uses the word false.
Well, if you read the Mueller report, he doesn't write the word false as far as I can see in the section. But if you read the Mueller report, what he's saying is that it's to dispute something that McGahn says is different. So, in other words, McGahn says, the president asked me to write this letter, and then later on, the president asks McGahn to say that he never asked him to. Sorry, the McGahn says the president asked me to make a statement, and later on, the president asked McGahn to write a letter saying that he never asked him to make that statement.
All right. I don't want to – we have such little time left. We can certainly go through each one of these. I read all 10 over again of the instances of possible instruction, and
Did you
I
read
just
the whole
don't
report, Renk?
I did not. I'll be honest with you, did not read the whole 448 pages. I thought that reading the 10 instances of what people are concerned about and the executive summaries in themselves was good enough. Just to be honest with you.
I just want to read to you this section because I think it's important, okay?
Real quickly, because I have a very important question to ask.
It says, the president then directed Porter to tell McGahn, this is Rob Porter, to tell McGahn to create a record to make clear that the president never directed McGahn to fire the special counsel. Earlier in the Mueller report, it is clear that the president did direct McGahn to fire the special counsel. And then later, the president wants McGahn to write a letter saying, I never directed you to do that. So that's creating a false record.
All right, I'll look into that. Here's the
Yep.
question I have for you in a bigger sense. You used to be a very big advocate against the abuse of our government surveillance of U.S. citizens. And
Still am.
why do you not seem to be so concerned then about what happened under the Obama administration and the surveillance of U.S. citizens connected with Trump, as well as what appears to be clear FISA court abuses? But that second part will certainly, hopefully, be proven one way or another.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just issued an amendment last week related to FISA, where I tried to stop FISA 702, and Republicans fought against me, including Devin Nunes and Republican leadership and a whole bunch of other people, because they want to continue the spying on the American people. My concern here is that people are conflating the issues. They're saying, well, because there may have been some FISA problems, which I agree with, there may have been some FISA problems related to getting a warrant, that because of that, it's not possible for the president to have obstructed justice or have done anything else that's illegal. And that's just wrong. They are separate matters. You can have a situation where part of the investigation has problems, and perhaps it does. That's why there's going to be an investigation. We're going to look into that, and I'm supportive of that. But that doesn't change the fact that the president is not allowed to then obstruct justice, mislead people, ask people to make false records, use his power to influence people to obstruct an investigation. He's not allowed to do those things.
No, I understand it, but the bigger concern to us, and I thought would be you, Congressman Amash, I think secondary to what you're saying, a president obstructing justice in your belief on a crime that never occurred, but it can still be obstruction. I understand that. Many people say it shouldn't be, but I understand that. But the bigger concern is that the government is spying on people using false affidavits or false information or not entire information to go after U.S. American citizens. And I guess a lot of people, myself, feel like I don't know why you aren't, when you get on your national pedestal, and that's great that you get that exposure, also bringing that up.
Well, first of all, I have brought it up at different times. I've brought up the fact that I think that should be investigated. We should find out what happened there. But
you mean related to this? Related to
yeah,
this?
Absolutely,
okay.
Related to. Yeah, and I brought it up at the town hall I held, a few weeks ago. So I have brought that up. The issue is there are people like Attorney General Barr who love the fact that the government spies on the American people. He's one of the architects of spying on the American people. And what he's trying to do, and others are trying to do, is distract from the fact that there is a huge problem with our whole FISA system, and they're trying to make it about individuals within the government. So what Barr wants you to believe is FISA is all well and good if we don't have bad people running it. And that is a very dangerous approach to this issue. And that's, I think, what a lot of people like Nunes and Barr and others are trying to do. They don't want to make it about FISA. They want to make it about particular individuals within government. And that actually benefits the deep state. That benefits the surveillance state. Because they love the apparatus. They want to just say, oh, it's just a few bad actors. If we get rid of those bad actors, everything's good.
All right.
I don't believe that, and I'm not going to play that game. I don't want to play into their hands on that.
But what I'm
saying
saying
is a problem with FISA. FISA itself is the problem.
Okay.
It's not about a few people just abusing it.
So when you get your time on those national shows, CNN, MS, whomever, Fox, whatever, I'm hoping that you bring that up, because that's what I certainly am, and certainly some of my callers and your constituents are concerned about, is this abuse, that blatant, looks like abuse used by the FBI and the DOJ under Obama, and maybe under the people that came after him, against anybody. Trump, if they can do it to Trump, they'll do it to us.
Well, they are doing it to you.
So, but that's what I'm hoping for. Now
they are doing it to you, but people like Bill Barr don't want to talk about that.
Well, we need to have another. Let's do another setup.
They do it to you every day with 702 without any warrant.
Well, let's try to have another interview where we can discuss that. I would love to do that. Here's a real quick, quick. We have a little over a minute that I've gotten up from a lot of people. So Obama used the IRS to go after his political opponents. Did you call for an investigation and subsequent impeachment proceedings to begin for that? Because in their mind, obstructing justice on a crime that never occurred or using the IRS or any other political agent or department to go against their political enemies is pretty bad.
So I don't think I called for impeachment for that, but I did talk about that. I did side with Republicans on that issue in the oversight committee that I was on. So I've gone after Lois Lerner. I've gone after Holder. I've called on people to resign. In fact, I've called on multiple attorneys general to resign, including under the Obama administration. So I've been consistent on that. The issue when you're talking about impeachment is it's quasi-legal, quasi-political. And if there's not enough political will for something, then it's not going anywhere. I think when you have a case like in the Mueller report where someone has clearly made false statements.
Well, hold on, Justin, Contra and Amash, if you can, because I've got a show to end here. And I'll talk to a little bit off record air if you can. Well, that's in your mind, his interpretation that he clearly tried to obstruct it. Others don't think that way. And impeachment's all politics, not real law. That's the problem. Thank you very much for calling in, Congressman Amash.